Many teams today operate in a constant state of overwhelm. And you might be questioning this, but the truth is that we have to remember teams are made up of individuals who have more going on in life than just work. And that overwhelm can come from other places, right? It can come from family, it can come from things going on in the world, not just the amount of work they have going on in the workplace. And so we have to remember that a lot of people are in a state of constant overwhelm right now because that overwhelm comes from feeling overloaded. And when we're overloaded, there's this reduced ability to focus, creativity is lost, and collaboration often goes out the window, right? Because trying to meet with somebody just to come up with a plan can feel like too much when you're already overloaded. So we have to be cautious that and be aware as leaders that people are overwhelmed and they might be having a lot going on, or maybe work is causing a lot of overload. And what can we do about that? Because as leaders, it's important that we help stabilize a team. And to stabilize teams requires leadership to have clarity and intentional adjustments. Now, in the first video, and you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to go watch it. We talked about how burnout and small things over time burn cultures out. Cultures just become destroyed. And so today we're going to start to talk about how do we recognize the overwhelming teams and what can we do about that. But that starts with leadership that has clarity and makes intentional adjustments. And so first, let's talk about those signs that overwhelm is going on in your workplace. So first and foremost, as a leader, are you noticing a lot of mistakes or missed deadlines by people? Or maybe it's something that you're struggling with yourself. That is a good sign that people are overwhelmed, constantly stressed, and we need to see how we can support them to adjust that, right? What needs to change? Because mistakes can be costly for organizations. Second of all, is there this increasing irritability and tension between colleagues, right? So people that used to work really well together and enjoy collaborating, all of a sudden they're butting heads and they're irritated with each other and they're kind of snapping. That's a sign that something's going on and people are overloaded. Is there a reduced collaboration or some disengagement going on? This is very common, right? Again, if people are overwhelmed, overloaded, starting to feel burnt out, they're going to hide in their office and do solo work. They're not going to want to come to the table and try and work with other people because that's a lot. It's hard to communicate when you're already struggling. So collaboration goes out the window, and that's where that engagement declines too, right? So if we're isolating, are we actually getting more work done? Or are we just hiding because we're trying to cope? Some employees might appear to be busy, but they're actually not producing anything, right? And when we talk about how stress and burnout affects the individual system for each person, that's what's going on within them and their brain function. It's harder to produce and actually put together coherent sentences and think through creative processes to put a project together when you're just overwhelmed, right? The internal system is overloaded. And so that productivity declines, but they'll be sitting at their desk or on their computer and it'll look like they're getting stuff done, but they're probably not. And if all of these things are going on, you're probably going to see the last sign, which is higher absenteeism. So more people are calling out sick. They're trying to take days off and use their vacation time, which is good. But if it's becoming chronic, right? Take a day off every week just so I work less. Or calling in because they're sick more. That is a sign that they've been in a state of stress for too long. And the one sign that is not usually spoken about, but people who are at this level of burnout, they're actually thinking about leaving and probably exploring other jobs. So turnover is going to increase. but it's not spoken about because those smaller changes we talked about in the first video are not paid attention to. And that's why we want to pay attention to these small shifts and make small changes to correct that so that we can retain the workforce and people can enjoy the work they're doing. Because you see, this overwhelm happens when there's too many competing priorities, right? So if I give an employee 5 tasks and I say they're all priority, and one day I'm hounding them about one priority and then the next day the other, there's a little confusion and overwhelm. Like, where do I put my focus? Because they don't know which one is truly the priority. Is there a lack of role clarity? Meaning, do employees know what their role is and their duties and their expectations? Or is it confusing? Confusion causes chaos, and that does not provide a sense of safety. Because you see, when there's these continuous changes without adjustment to time, and we're not changing to adapt, and we're not getting crystal clear for employees are going to burn out. And leaders might not recognize this, but leaders unintentionally increase the pressure. And I get it. As a leader, you have pressure from above you. And that can be a lot of pressure when it's coming all the time. And so you have this natural tendency to push pressure downhill. And we just have to be cautious of how we're pushing that pressure, right? It's one thing if it's very clear, the priority is clear, but what pressure can we try and absorb or push back uphill instead of pushing it downhill? Because sometimes, especially middle management, we have to push back uphill. We can't just nod our heads and say, okay, we'll get that done. We have to ask questions. And so there are some things that overwhelmed teams need immediately, right? And these are things that are going to help things start to shift, those small changes. And first and foremost, teams need to know what the clear priorities are from leadership. You can't say everything is priority because nothing will get done. You as the leader have to determine that prioritization order and help everybody else understand what that is and why. When people understand the why, they will get so much more done and they will be bought into the mission. As a leader, it's important to reduce unnecessary tasks. So we do need to ask the why questions. Is this task really important? Why does it need to be done? And does it need to be done right now? Because the more unnecessary tasks we do, the more we just look busy and we're not productive. As leaders, we also need to protect not only our own, but those we supervise, their focus time. Meaning if they have an hour in their schedule to actually work on a project, we need to protect that time and not schedule a meeting, not walk in all the time and ask 20 questions. We need to let them have that focus time to work because I promise you they'll get more done. As leaders, we also need to make sure we have transparent communication about expectations. So even if you're not 100% sure on what's shifting, if you're communicating, hey, we have some changes coming about, we're still trying to figure out the details. I want you to continue doing what you're doing, and I will come back when I have that information and it's clear. That's going to go far, not only in building the culture, but in what those expectations are, because people don't do well with the unexpected. We like predictability. And people need to know they have supportive leadership that is also present, right? I've worked under leaders who were physically present, but not super supportive. And I've worked with others who were supportive, but not physically around. And whether the leader is physically there or not, making sure the support is consistent when you're away and when you're around is so important. People need to know what that support is and what it looks like, right? So that could be, I have open office hours, meaning if my door's open, come in, let's talk. Or send me a text if there's something going on and I'll call you as soon as I have a minute, right? It's those expectations. but letting people know that I want to hear your voice, I want to hear what you have to say goes a long way. And so as leaders, we can stabilize teams for the long term. And we do this through creating certain systems, right? We look at creating these predictable work rhythms and patterns. Do people know what's expected? So in the behavioral health field, right, we usually have team meetings. The predictable work rhythm is the meeting is the same day of the week and the same time every week, and it's at the same location. We don't change it very often. Once in a while, sure, if we want to do something special, but most of the time, it's predictable. It's knowing how things need to function and how they need to do things and who they can rely on to get certain things done. As leaders, we need to make sure that roles and responsibilities are crystal clear. It cannot be a muddied water. They have to be able to know, okay, this is my lane, and if this comes up, I'm going to direct it to somebody else. And I'm going to know who that person is, who to direct it to, right? We have to provide that clarity. And yes, things shift, but we can maintain that clarity in that shifting process. Are we encouraging open communication about workloads? Meaning, if somebody says, I don't know if I can get this done because I'm already struggling with these 5 other projects, are we going to sit down and listen to what they have to say and problem solve together? Or are we going to say, your problem, just deal with it? Right? Because your problem, just deal with it is not that open communication, and that does not help provide that psychological safety in the workplace. And as leaders, I think this is one of the hardest ones that to do. And I've fallen into it too. And it's hard to normalize rest and recovery, but it is so imperative. We have to normalize the importance and the action of building in rest and recovery, especially during intense work periods. So even if it's a deadline for a project that needs to be done on Friday, great. Where is the built-in recovery time? And yes, it needs to be when the project is ended so people can recover and come back to the next project rejuvenated. But in the midst of that intense time, are we taking lunch breaks and walking away from the work, even for 15 minutes? It does not have to be long, but that time to step away without working on it, to go for a walk, to nourish our bodies, allows our brains to recover so that when we come back, we are more focused and we will keep getting stuff done. When we push through, it's harder to be productive and it's harder to be efficient without errors. Errors happen all the time. And so it's important to recognize that team overwhelm often signals a deeper systemic burnout risk within your company. And so I invite you to take the burnout assessment I created for organizations. It's free. I'm going to drop the link below in the notes. But this is just for you to help identify where stress patterns are impacting your team's performance. Because I want to see your teams thrive, and I know you want your team to thrive. But it's important to recognize that we have to stabilize teams, and that begins with leadership who has clarity.